Star Trek is no stranger to pain, loss, or the long shadows cast by its most iconic characters. But in the midst of space battles, time travel, and philosophical debates, some stories slip through the cracks, stories that deserve attention. One of those stories belongs to Pavel Chekov, the youthful, ever-loyal navigator of the USS Enterprise. While William Shatner's 1989 directorial debut Star Trek V, The Final Frontier gave every crew member a moment of vulnerability or reflection, it inexplicably bypassed Chekhov's own inner turmoil, a secret pain that had been quietly growing behind his boyish grin and Russian accent. To understand what Star Trek V missed, we must first look at how the film handled pain. When Sibik, Spock's renegade half-brother, confronts the Enterprise crew, he uses his empathic abilities to unlock and expose their most deeply buried emotional wounds. We see McCoy relive the agony of euthanizing his father, and Uhura confront years of loneliness. Even Spock faces his father's disappointment over his human half. These moments added texture to beloved characters. But Chekov? He is conspicuously absent from this emotional excavation, reduced to comedic relief and command duties. This oversight is frustrating not just from a narrative perspective, but because Chekov's hidden trauma was ripe for exploration, pain rooted in his identity, loyalty, and the losses he's endured both on and off screen. Chekov is often viewed as comic relief, the enthusiastic young ensign with a thick accent and patriotic pride in Mother Russia. But beneath the lighthearted facade lies a character shaped by personal tragedies. In Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, Chekov is the first to encounter Khan Noonien Singh after the villain's exile. The traumatic experience of being controlled by a Seti eel and forced to betray his crew haunted him, though never openly addressed. His stiff demeanor, panic, and even guilt in that film were never fully explored afterward. A skilled writer could easily expand that moment into a lifelong burden Chekov carries in silence. Moreover, Chekov's unspoken pain is also tied to his youthful ambition. Always eager to prove himself, he entered Starfleet determined to show that Russia could produce heroes just as brilliant as any Vulcan or American. But on a crew filled with legends, Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and Scotty, Chekov often remained in the background. He smiled through it, eager and polite, but there's tragedy in being perpetually overlooked. He was a junior officer surrounded by titans, his contributions often taken for granted. It's a feeling many fans can relate to, giving your all and still being seen as a sidekick. And then there's the very real grief tied to actor Anton Yelchin, who portrayed Chekov in the Kelvin Timeline reboot films. Yelchin's tragic death in 2016 added an unexpected layer of melancholy to the character's legacy. Though not canon to the original timeline, his passing reminded audiences just how much Chekov, in all his versions, had to offer, and how often he was forgotten. What Star Trek V could have done is offer Chekov a moment of catharsis. Imagine Sibik approaching him and unearthing a scene where Chekov, alone in a Starfleet dormitory, stares at a commendation he'll never live up to, or relives the horror of being mind-controlled on Ceti Alpha V. Maybe he'd hear whispers of doubt, wondering if he'll ever be more than a kid brother on the bridge. Sibik would promise to take away the pain, but Chekov, ever loyal, would refuse. That moment could have transformed the character in fans' eyes, finally elevating him from supporting player to full-fledged member of the emotional core of the crew. It's ironic that a film so concerned with finding God and understanding pain skipped over a man who quietly embodied both. Chekov's pain wasn't as dramatic as McCoy's or as alien as Spock's, but it was real. The pain of being second best, of surviving trauma without resolution, of loyalty unrewarded, that's the kind of subtle suffering that defines humanity. Ultimately, Chekov's story speaks to something deeply resonant. Not every pain is loud. Not every trauma screams for attention. Some linger quietly, buried beneath uniforms, orders, and forced smiles. Star Trek V missed an opportunity to honor that kind of pain, the quiet ache of those who hold the ship together while others steal the spotlight. In a franchise that prides itself on exploring the human condition, Chekov's journey remains one of the most underexplored. But perhaps that's why his character continues to matter. He reminds us that not all heroes are at the center of the frame. Some are navigating in the shadows, fighting silent battles, waiting for the moment when their pain is finally acknowledged, not by a villain seeking control, but by a narrative willing to listen. Maybe next time, Star Trek will finally let Chekov speak.